another video I've wanted to make for some time is one about the sort of weird class discourse that we've got at the moment, and I might still make this one, because we have this really odd thing at the moment where we've sort of started to talk about class a lot more, again, because inequality has become a big thing, but also in really, really bad ways. So in the US, you get discussions of like coastal elites and the sort of flyover states. In the UK, you get this whole discourse about sort of metropolitan elites and the sort of left behind regions. And a lot of my PhD sort of looked at that discourse and the ways in which actually regional inequality in both countries actually is really, really is really bad. Like your life opportunities, your opportunities for earning an income, your health vary massively depending on whether you live in like one of those major cities, whichever country you're in, or whether you live in its hinterland or even further out. But at the same time, those things don't match up entirely. Like they're not perfect analogies for class in the present day, right? You get a lot of very poor people and very precarious people living in big cities. You also get a lot of relatively wealthy people living not there. So it's sort of like on aggregate, you get that inequality, but in but there's many exceptions to that. And one of the interesting things is that a lot of boomers might not be super rich in terms of what money they have coming in, but they have bought a house at a really good time and the house price goes up. So in terms of like assets, they're quite well off, and they've got that real level of stability as well, right? Because they can't be kicked out of their home in the same way that young people can. And actually, a show that I sort of thought sums this up quite well, and I, in some ways, critiqued it, but in other ways maybe didn't, was, I'll get the trailer for it up, was Schitt's Creek. And I don't know how many of you have seen Schitt's Creek, which I think when I first started watching it, I was like, okay, this is just going to be a sort of rehash of Arrested Development, maybe. But actually, me and my partner got really into it, like a few lockdowns back, and absolutely adored it. Like a really, really funny show, really like warm show that you really just get on board with. And I think the way in which it has this sort of, I know it's set in Canada, so I don't know exactly where they're living in those initial pictures, but they very much get sent to Schitt's Creek, which is the like place in the arse end of nowhere. Very much the like sort of left behind or sort of white trash area. And so it very much engages with this idea of having like your metropolitan centre and your sort of backwaters, which I think in our cultural discourse generally are really denigrated, right? I think if you watch most English language sort of visual culture, whether that's TV, whether that's film, and sort of in our books and stuff as well, what you find is that there's probably about 3 places where it's legitimate to live. If a character lives in Los Angeles, or if they live in, say, New York, I suppose maybe Washington, maybe London, if they live in one of those places, then that's correct. Well done. They can just live their life. Whenever you see something where someone lives in any other place, quite often they're trying to get out of it, and that's sort of taken as as sort of logical and correct. And of course they are. Of course they want to move to the big place, the big city. And so I sort of found it interesting because I think we are very much living in sort of the world according to Schitt's Creek at the moment, in terms of our sort of the ways in which we talk about, particularly about inequality and about class. And I think there are ways in which the show critiques that, in that, the people that lives in Schitt's Creek are super human and actually really nice and intelligent in their own ways, in ways that in our sort of more mainstream discourses, we're led to believe that anyone who doesn't live in the sort of metropolitan centre is a bit thick. Sometimes we're encouraged to feel sorry for them, but whilst also thinking that they're probably a bit thick. And actually, these sort of metropolitan folks are a little bit airheady. But the Schitt family, right? Or the Rose family, they sort of grow to love this place. And there are elements where it is that they all bring their sort of expertise, their business expertise, to this little place where and sort of use that to, it's very much like Schitt's Creek could not function well economically until the Rose family arrived. And so I'd sort of questioned that. But I think it is an interesting engagement with what is perhaps the dominant sort of way in which we talk about inequality in the present time, because we do talk about it in that geographical sense.